Hi, everyone. We're going to be getting started in about 2 minutes, just to allow some time for everyone to trickle in. And then in the meantime, my colleague Veronique can share a poll to let you know where you're joining us today. And you can also introduce yourself in the chat. For those of you who just joined, we're going to be getting started in about 1 minute. Please answer the poll to let us know where you're joining us today. And you can also introduce yourself further in the chat. Okay, so welcome everyone. We are going to start the webinar. We have a very exciting presentation for you today as we are introducing and officially launching Mentor Canada's Quality Mentoring System. My name is Ben Dancer and I'm the Quality Mentoring and Capacity Building Specialist here at Mentor Canada. Before we begin, we just have a few housekeeping items. So today is being recorded, so if you get disconnected or have to leave early, don't worry, we will be sharing the recording with everyone. At the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A box. Throughout the entire presentation, please feel free to pose your questions within there. And at the end of today's webinar, we will be having a Q&A session with the audience and we'll address your questions at that point. Also, if you have any technical difficulties, please send a direct message to my colleagues, Jessica or Michelle, who'd be happy to assist you. And it looks like, can everyone see the results of the poll? Yes. It looks like we're being joined from a lot of different sectors today, not only the mentoring field, but youth development, education, the corporate sector, government, research, and other, which is really wonderful to hear because we did design the quality mentoring system to not only have relevance and usefulness for the mentoring sector, but also a broader and kind of wide array of sectors as well. So with that out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Veronique for some further housekeeping items for the French-speaking audience.
Hi everyone, I'm Véronique Church-Duplessis, the Director of Research and Evaluation for Mentor Canada. Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Véronique, je suis la directrice de la recherche et de l'évaluation pour Mentor Canada. Pour les francophones qui se joignent à nous aujourd'hui, nous offrons un service d'interprétation. Donc, si vous cliquez sur le petit globe en bas de votre écran, vous allez pouvoir sélectionner français comme langue et puis nos interprètes pourront traduire les interventions de nos participants et participantes aujourd'hui. Nous allons aussi partager momentanément les diapositives en français. Donc, il y a un document PDF qui contient toutes les informations qui sont présentées aujourd'hui en français pour vous. Donc, vous pourrez mieux suivre ce dont nous parlons. Et finalement, vous avez l'option de poser vos questions dans la section Q&A en français également, et nous pourrons y répondre en français plus tard aujourd'hui. Donc, bienvenue à tous et toutes. And Ben, over back to you.
I think it's over to Jordy for the acknowledgement.
Great. Megzi Stiznikaz, Wawashkanga Donjuba. My name is Jordy Jocko. I'm from Whitefish River First Nation, and I'm the Stakeholder and Community Engagement Manager for Mentor Canada. So I'll be helping with the community practice. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but I really want to acknowledge that I'm calling from the Robson Huron Treaty, which is my home territory. So I hope that everybody can take the time to reflect on where they're calling from. If you already know, it would be great to type that in the chat and be able to kind of acknowledge that. And if you have the time today to take some time outside, go to your favorite park, go just clean up your neighborhood. I think it's just one thing that we can do to acknowledge the land we're on and acknowledge the spirit that's still living in this land. So I'll pass it back to Ben.
Thanks for that, Jordy. So this is just a recap of the quality mentoring system team, some of the friendly faces that you'll see as you're navigating your way through the quality mentoring system, and just our names and titles once again. So today we have 4 items on our agenda, and we will be moving at quite a quick pace because today is really designed to provide a quick introduction and snapshot of the quality mentoring system, because we wanted to leave a lot more time for the panel discussion and Q&A with the audience. Don't worry, we do have a lot of events in the works for the future that we will be diving much deeper into all of the components of the quality mentoring system. So stay tuned for that. So we're going to begin by introducing Mentor Canada and some of the work that we do, give a background of the quality mentoring system and showcase its 4 components. Then we'll have a panel discussion with some of the leading mentoring researchers and practitioners who helped us conceptualize, develop, and refine the quality mentoring system. And then, as I mentioned, at the very end, we'll have some time for Q&A with the audience. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to write them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so for those of you who are new to Mentor Canada, and this might be your first webinar with us, welcome. So since 2019, Mentor Canada has sought to engage programs, organizations, and institutions across the country to work together in promoting mentoring experiences, increasing quality mentoring opportunities, and really empowering young people in every sector to fulfill their goals through mentorship. And as the only national body dedicated to supporting and building capacity for mentoring, we work alongside governments, the private sector, schools, and community organizations at all levels to build a world-class mentoring ecosystem, particularly for youth facing barriers in Canada. Okay, so let's get to the reason why we're all here and introduce the quality mentoring system. So we define the quality mentoring system as a system of tools, resources, and learning opportunities that empower mentoring programs, organizations, and initiatives to advance their quality and impact. And when we refer to the QMS, we really are referring to a system. So there's a total of 4 components so far. So there's the principles of quality mentoring self-assessment, there's an innovation plan, there's the national community of practice, and then there's technical assistance and capacity building, which we'll detail in further slides, each of these components. But it's important to note that there's really multiple entry points to the QMS. You don't have to work through it in a linear fashion. You can start wherever you wish and with whatever tool you find useful. And all tools are offered in both English and French. And we really designed the QMS to have wide applicability and usefulness. So yes, it's useful and helpful for the mentoring sector, but also educational institutions, the employment sector, the private sector, school boards, human resources, community organizations, the social impact sector, academia, and government. So really no matter where you're joining from us today and what your organizational needs are, we designed the QMS with you in mind, and you will find that it's useful and valuable for your needs. So why did we develop a quality mentoring system for Canada in the first place? Well, when Mentor Canada was established in 2019, it was identified that the Canadian mentoring sector really needed tools that would help us advance the quality and impact of mentoring across Canada. So before today, there were no unified national tools to measure quality mentoring in Canada that would help us support quality enhancement in ways that were actually responsive to the diversity of mentoring that we see across Canada. It's also worth mentioning, because we know there's an international audience on the call today, that despite being developed for Canada, the QMS can really be used by an international audience as well. And finally, we developed the quality mentoring system because our mission here at Mentor Canada is to increase national capacity, equip a wide array of sectors with the skills and knowledge that they need to really make more informed decisions and advance their programs, quality, and impact. And I'll turn it over to Veronique to discuss how the QMS was developed and some of its strengths.
Thanks, Ben. So as you might have seen at the beginning, we weren't alone in developing this tool. We worked closely with some researchers and practitioners to develop the quality mentoring system. And, we acknowledge that we received a lot of support and help along the way here. And we started all of this back in 2020 with a comprehensive literature review to know what we already knew from research in terms of practices that support quality mentoring programming and the achievement of positive outcomes. Two pieces of information were particularly influential in us developing the quality mentoring system. The first one being the elements of effective practice developed by Mentor in the United States that has been around for several years, and that does offer a very comprehensive view of practices that support quality mentoring programming. And you'll hear a lot more about this later today. The second part was the Back to the Future article that Drs. Cavell, Spencer, and McQuillan published in 2021. And that was very important because it gave us a theoretical framework to make sense and organize quality mentoring in a way that would recognize the diversity of depth of mentoring models and the different approaches that these different models use. They're not exactly the same, so it makes sense that they don't use the same practices in all cases. We also had, starting in the winter of last year, a working group with some diverse mentoring practitioners, people who have been around for a long time and have a lot of experience dealing with different mentoring program models, different populations as well. So we had people from the workplace mentoring sector, post-secondary sector, people who do in-person or virtual mentoring, people who deal with different populations, such as justice-involved youth or youth who experience homelessness or Indigenous youth. So really, what was valuable is that all of those practitioners who participated in the working group and in the pilot afterwards informed the development of the tool and confirmed and validated that it had applicability for their particular context, that it was of value to them. Which brings us to today, about 2 years later, with the launch of the Quality Mentoring System's first public iteration. Gotta say, this is work that will keep improving over the next couple of months and years. This is not a definite version, but rather a version that we feel confident enough is good and valuable for the sector to launch and share with you today. So the quality mentoring system has a couple of strengths, including the fact that it is based on principles as opposed to being based on standards. What that means is that we provide guidance about how to think and how to act based not only on research evidence, but also on evidence and expertise that we got from practitioners and from the field, as well as some values that should and do guide the work in the mentoring field. The principles, they provide guidance. They don't provide prescription or standards. And that means that we are able to honor context and allow programs to make their own decisions, their informed decisions that will honor their own particular circumstances. So it embraces diversity in that sense, and it avoids a top-down approach. It recognizes that people, programs, initiatives, communities are experts in their own context and their own lives. And we really encourage collaboration between programs and initiatives and the communities, as well as between, for example, us and programs who may be interested in engaging in the quality mentoring system. And the ultimate goal really is to advance the quality of mentoring opportunities for young people across Canada and perhaps internationally as well. Ben, if you... Thank you. So 4 components of the quality mentoring system, as Ben mentioned earlier. We'll start with where it all began, the principles of quality mentoring, self-assessment. So the self-assessment is an online tool that invites programs and initiatives to take a very comprehensive look at their own practices and how these are connected to all dimensions of quality mentoring opportunities. The tool is designed to generate reflection and discussion about what quality looks like in a program or initiative's unique context, which means that in many cases, there's no right answer to the question. It's more about thinking what would make sense in your own context. And it encourages programs to adopt an intentional and realistic approach to offering quality mentoring opportunities to young people. It's not a public rating tool. It's not something that will rank your program. And it's really meant to help enhance quality and safety, but also make programs more equitable, efficient, effective, and satisfying for mentors and mentees and program participants. So the idea behind it is that good mentoring models linked to good practices can lead to good experiences for participants, which can lead ultimately to good outcomes. If we look at different uses of the quality mentoring system self-assessment, you'll hear from Joella and Kim and Gabriella a little later on, who can share a lot more about how they've used it either to assess an existing program or to create new programs or to guide conversations with funders, because all of these things can be done using this self-assessment tool. Now, just to give you a quick snapshot of what it looks like, unfortunately, we don't really have time for a full demo here today, but we have a couple of screenshots that will give you an idea of how neat it looks. If you look and you get into the self-assessment, it begins each of the 5 principles with, stating what the principle is on the left. As you can see, be intentional, define the type and purpose of mentoring relationship is one of the principles. Then it provides a bit of an explanation and rationale for this principle. And then it follows with some questions to help you think about what that principle might look like if you applied it to your context. So the principle is a bit of a universal truth, something that should be applicable in a wide variety of contexts. However, how that happens concretely will vary. So those questions there are meant to guide you and help you think about that. On the side, we have a list of notes and things to provide more information if you need it, as well as tools and resources that can help you go deeper. And here we're not only promoting Mentor Canada resources. In fact, we looked quite broadly in the sector to look at credible tools that would be helpful for programs. So we have tools, for example, from Mentor in the United States or the National Mentoring Resource Center. Really, the goal is to make sure that you have access to those resources in a timely fashion if you want to explore them in more detail. There's a little button there that you can see where you can add a little comment within the tool itself. So you can make some notes along the way so you don't forget your thoughts. And I'll hand it over back to Ben.
Thanks, Farrell. So the next component of the quality mentoring system is the innovation plan. So in terms of what is it, the innovation plan is a set of evidence-informed tools to systematically advance the quality of mentoring programs. Basically, it's a collection of some of the most well-known and evidence-informed quality enhancement tools that programs can use to start taking action towards their identified areas for growth. In terms of how can mentoring programs and initiatives use it, there's a whole variety of uses, but some of the main ones are to set priorities, create realistic goals, test ideas for improvement on a small scale, and document and learn from those improvement efforts before implementing them on a program-wide basis. So the innovation plan, I like to think of it as kind of a sandbox where programs, initiatives, and organizations can kind of test out some ideas for quality enhancement before really investing some significant time, energy, and money. So why should mentoring programs and initiatives use the innovation plan? Well, obviously to enhance quality and safety by taking concrete and actionable steps towards quality enhancement. There's also one that we're very excited about is to strengthen relationships with young people and community members. So within the innovation plan, there is a community journey map that really encourages programs, organizations, and initiatives to actually sit down with the young people who experience the program and really co-construct what those programs look and feel like. So it's a great opportunity to support diversity and inclusion, but also ensure that programs are really designed to meet the needs and be in alignment with the needs and values of the people who are actually experiencing the program. And the final reason would be to save time and money. So an opportunity to discover what works and what doesn't before investing significant time, energy, and resources in large-scale improvement efforts. So let's take a look at the innovation plan. So the plan has 3 steps. The first is explore and discover. And basically, this is a collection of tools to help you really filter through all the ideas and projects that you might pursue really before taking action. So within this first step, we have a root cause analysis grid, which can discover the hidden causes of certain barriers and really make sure that your efforts are focused in the right areas. We have a mentoring project selection grid, which is a really good way of filtering through all the opportunities and projects you might pursue and really finding the ones that have that perfect combination of effort and impact. As I mentioned earlier, there's also a community journey map where you can really sit down with the people who are experiencing your programs and really go from our voice of the community of the mentoring program designers to a more community voice, to a more collective voice. So again, a really great opportunity to invite some co-construction and engagement from young people in your community. Step 2 is to innovate. So actually starting to test ideas, implement them, learn from them, and document your learning before engaging in kind of program-wide enhancements. And to support that, we have the cycle of innovation. And then the third step is to collaborate and learn. So we encourage people to join the National Community of Practice or set up a technical assistance and capacity building meeting with me to discuss their learning, maybe pose some of their ongoing questions with a broader mentoring community to really receive further support. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jordy to discuss the National Community of Practice.
Thanks, man. So yeah, the National Community of Practice will be coming March 2023. So look out for that. And I want to just kind of like add in that with the community practice, it's the first and only national community practice on mentoring in Canada for mentoring professionals who want to deepen their knowledge and sharpen their skills. So it's really just bringing together a community who share a common concern, set of barriers, or passion about a topic, a dedicated space to collaborate, share information, and improve knowledge and skills. So it's really just building up the community, building up each other for support. How can you get involved? Well, join the conversations to be able to share your program, attend meetings or discussion boards to pose your questions, to receive feedback from other mentoring professionals or stakeholders. This will help organizations that might be at capacity and know who they can refer youth to, and also for organizations to collaborate together and lead some amazing initiatives. Engaging in high focus discussions about quality mentoring, and then there will also be a lot of scheduled professional learning opportunities as well. So what are the benefits? Well, strengthen professional networks to collaborate with, but also to seek other like-minded organizations to co-write proposals or to work on a barrier together. Stay informed about the sector, discover new ideas, be able to ask questions, and you can also help solve pressing challenges. The biggest thing is with a community practice, it's a place to lean on and a place to kind of share and ask those three crucial words that are, I need help, and being able to kind of, as a community, come together to help support that organization or that program. So I will pass it back to you, Ben.
Thanks, Jordy. And we'll drop a link in the chat where you can sign up to get a notification for future events for the community of practice and when it officially launches. So the final component of the quality mentoring system is technical assistance and capacity building. So what is it? Well, it's an opportunity to sit down with me, the quality mentoring and capacity building specialist, and to really go on a quality enhancement journey together. I'm really here to assist you with your program needs and help you meet your goals and initiatives, whatever that may be. In terms of how you can actually access this, well, you can send me an email, ben.dancer@mentoringcanada.ca, and we'll include it in the chat later. Or we're also hosting weekly drop-in hours starting February 1st, every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4 Eastern. This is basically just an open Zoom meeting where I'm making myself available to the mentoring community. You can come by with no appointment needed, ask your questions, get what you need, and jump out without having to go through hurdles and setting up a formal meeting. Again, that's starting February 1st, every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4 Eastern. In terms of why should mentoring programs and initiatives use the TA and capacity building, in a nutshell, it's basically streamlined access to someone who deeply cares about mentoring, really understands the mentoring research and literature. It's literally what I'm paid to do day in and day out. I'm reading about research articles and evidence. I'm also a PhD student at the University of British Columbia, where I've been studying the impact of mentoring relationships on human development since 2014. And I'm also a longstanding volunteer mentor with the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. So I really do love this stuff and love reading about it. So I'm just here to share my knowledge and also lean on your knowledge as well to kind of co-construct some solutions to your pressing challenges. Some of the things we can do together, we can build new programs together. We can enhance the quality of existing programs together. We can unpack the latest mentoring research and evidence and resources together. We can nerd out and create logic models and theories of change together if you want. So really the opportunities are endless. I'm really here to support you. My door is always open, and I'm just here to help advance the quality and impact of the mentoring community. So please reach out. So with that all said and done, the quality mentoring system is live. You can visit it by visiting qualitymentoring.ca. And as Vera was mentioning earlier, expect some changes and updates to the website and the quality mentoring system in the coming months. We just really could not wait any longer to get this out there and really help the sector start improving quality and advancing impact. And as I mentioned earlier, here is my email, ben.dancer@mentoringcanada.ca. If you have any questions about the quality mentoring system or today's presentation, I'd be happy to sit down and discuss that with you. Okay, so let's meet our lovely group of panelists. So joining us today, we have Dr. Tim Cavell, who's a professor in the Department of Psychological Science at the University of Arkansas. We have Dr. Renee Spencer, who's a professor in the School of Social Work at Boston University. We have Juela Cabrera, who's a mentor coordinator at Covenant House, Toronto. Gabriella Ludison, who's a coordinator, peer program student affairs at Queen's University. And finally, we have Kim Megacy, who's the executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Saskatoon and area. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, open it up, and we will get to some of our questions for the panel. Give me a second here. Okay, so my first question is for Juela. Juela, as someone who was involved in the design and testing of the principles of quality mentoring self-assessment, what were some of your key takeaways from using the self-assessment, and what did you find most valuable?
Great. Thank you for the question, Ben. First of all, thank you for having me at this webinar as well. I'm super excited for the system. I know that I'm in such great company. So after testing out the tool, I must say that I'm very impressed with it. The assessment tool is detailed, but not in an overwhelming way. It's user-friendly and really easy to navigate, and the information really resonates with me. The language is something that we are all familiar with, being in this sector, so you can definitely relate. There is a notes and resource section, which I really like on the side if you want to learn more about a specific topic. And the way the system is laid out is that you have a dashboard that shows you the 5 principles you may want to work on. And when you're using the tool, you don't have to start anywhere specific. You really can make it work for you. You can start from the bottom and work your way up. So it's really flexible in that sense. And you can toggle between all the different principles tabs if you want to change or edit anything. Also, the tool saves all of your information. So in case you log out, or if you happen to leave, the information doesn't disappear. So you can always go back. As long as, of course, you remember your username and password, you're fine. You can even add another program that you'd like to assess if your organization has more than one. And when you're done with the tool, you have the ability to print the assessment if you want to share it with your team, for example. The tool really helped me to identify what we can change or improve to deliver the best possible service to our youth. And it really allows your organization to determine the direction of where you want to go and how you want to get there. And I think, as Ben or Vero mentioned, the tool is really great for any mentoring organizations already in existence, but even better for those who are just establishing their program. I wish that I had this when I first started. It would have just made it easier to organize my thoughts and my vision. So this tool is quite adaptable, and any organization who want to create a mentorship program can really benefit from the tool. And the best part is that you do receive a report on where your program stands based on the information you provide, so you can then reflect on that as well. So I hope that, now that it's out, I hope that you check it out, try it out, and really see for yourself how you can make use of the tool for your organization.
Thanks, Juela. That was a great response. And we didn't even pay her to say any of that.
No.
But yeah, the user experience and the flexibility was definitely top of mind as we were developing the self-assessment tool. So I'm glad that that resonated with you and you picked up on that. Thanks, Juela. Okay, so my next question is for Gabriella. So Gabriella, as someone who works for a post-secondary institution, can you tell us how you used the self-assessment and what did you find valuable?
Hello, everyone. And thank you, Joella, for describing in such detail the quality mentoring tool and for reminding me and for describing to everyone how this tool can be used. I definitely back up everything you said. I also add that I work at a large post-secondary educational institution with decentralized programming, which means that there are various departments and groups on campus that initiate and coordinate mentoring programs based on specific and evolving needs and interests. Needs and interests continuously evolve, so we have to keep up with the quality. The self-assessment tool, I find, is a particularly useful tool in this context, where we have some well-established mentoring programs that will be using the tool to assess their alignment with the best practices. And as Joella said, it's also a great tool for priming groups who are interested in developing a new mentoring program. It serves as a guiding tool, asking the questions that need to be asked as you think about developing a program. The tool is general enough to ask questions that are valid across different types of mentoring programs. It captures the full scope of mentoring. I know that many educational institutions value mentoring, and I noticed there are quite a few participants today from post-secondary educational institutions. So I think we all agree that we know institutions do value mentoring, but that also mentoring will be only part of someone's portfolio oftentimes, with limitations on the kinds of resources invested. So then this tool becomes very valuable to help ground your mentoring program in quality and best practices from the very start.
Thanks, Gabriella. It's interesting that you mentioned, that your program had a lot of decentralized mentoring programs, and the tool really helped you kind of get intentional and realistic about your programs. I think mentoring is such a popular intervention and prevention strategy that it can kind of just then be implemented without really sitting down and kind of thinking about it carefully, because there are some nuances to quality mentoring that really need to be considered when you're implementing a program. So that's one of the reasons we developed the quality mentoring system, to help people really sit down, pause, think systematically about quality mentoring, understand the nuances, and really think about how they're designing their program. So I'm glad Queens found that useful. Okay, so my next question is for Tim. So Tim, as we mentioned earlier, the 2021 article that you co-authored with Renee and Sam was a foundational inspiration for the quality mentoring system. When you wrote that article, what did you see that was missing in the field of mentoring, and how do you think the QMS will help meet that need? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Thanks for the question, Ben. Bonjour. I don't know much French, but I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm wearing my Louisiana hat because it's a wet, rainy day here. So good to be with all of you. What did I think was missing? In 1943, a long time ago, a famous psychologist named Kurt Lewin once wrote, "Nothing is so practical as a good theory." And what I had felt was missing from the field of mentoring, from research on mentoring, was a good theory. We had a theory, we had a big omnibus theory offered by our colleague Gene Rhodes early on in the process of doing research on youth mentoring. But I found it was not as useful as it could be. In a way, it was so comprehensive, so well thought through, that it was difficult to test. And that, I think, stymied the field. It didn't force people to think through what they were doing. Instead, it became sort of performative to roll out that mega mentoring model and say, this is our theory, but not be beholding to it, not be guided by it, not testing it. So my answer would be that there needs to be theory, and the opportunity to work with Sam and Renee on this was just an incredible professional experience. And if you've read the article, you may remember that at the very beginning, we start with an anecdote, an actual event that happened at the Summer Institute in Youth Mentoring in Portland, almost 15 years ago. I was talking about my research on a kind of school-based mentoring that had pretty good outcomes, even though we intentionally watered down the quality of the relationship. We watered down the relationship because it was a control condition in a grant-funded study. We watered down the relationship by having the mentor meet with the child at the school lunch table. In the US, we have school cafeterias in almost every school. And we watered down the relationship because every semester over 3 semesters, we removed the mentor and replaced that mentor with a different mentor. And yet the outcomes favored this standalone mentoring program. So my question to these mentoring programmers back in 2007 in Portland was this: is it possible that youth mentoring might benefit children by means other than the relationship? Which is a direct sort of challenge, if you will, to the prevailing model, theoretical model in youth mentoring, that mentoring, nothing happens in mentoring except through the strength of the relationship. Well, we watered down the relationship and found good outcomes. But that was a real educational moment for me, because when I asked the question, how else might mentoring help youth through means other than the relationship, the question to the audience made almost no sense. So for the next 30 minutes, we spent discussing, what am I saying? And that was the impetus for a lot of discussions over the years between Renee and I, as well as Sam, about, is mentoring a relationship, or is it a means to an end that happens to involve a relationship? And so I think one of the best things to come out of this paper, and to see your implementation of it, is to create sort of micro theories, going small, if you will, about what's our understanding about what we expect to happen, and fitting that in a program specific way.
Thanks, Tim. I actually read the article this morning, well, skimmed, to be honest, just to refresh my knowledge. And that anecdote did stick out to me. What a great kind of / weird experience, but productive. And,
Yeah.
and thanks for throwing it back to Kurt Lewin. As someone who does community-based research, he's one of my role models. So appreciate that. My next question is for Renee. And just before that, we did share Tim's article in the chat for those who are interested in reading it. So Renee, can you please give us a brief summary of the innovative bilateral framework? Tim touched on it a little bit, but could you expand?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Ben. And it's just like such a pleasure to get to be here and part of this rollout. I'm so impressed with what you all have done with this QMS initiative, and could not be more thrilled and humbled and delighted that that the paper that Tim, Sam, and I wrote, has informed or, played a role in this in any way. It's very gratifying. And as Tim said, it was a blast writing that article. We had such a great time and a lot of productive conversations. And part of those conversations is just as Tim was describing at that Summer Institute. It's like people were having completely different conversations, and there was this sense of, how do we get on the same page and understand where each other is coming from with the provocative questions that Tim was raising. And that's sort of what we tried to hammer out in that paper, that in the field of mentoring, we felt like there were these different ways of thinking about mentoring that were floating around, but there wasn't a way to really capture them. And at times, because in the States, we love competition. So at the time, it felt like we were pitting these different models against each other, and which model's better and which one's going to win. And, it just felt really unproductive. And I'm a big fan of the power of mentoring, in part because it can take so many different forms and serve so many purposes. That's part of what's so exciting about it. But how do we capture that as a field and provide ways to think about it, and not have these conversations where people are talking about different things? We think we're talking about the same thing, but we're actually talking about different things. So that's where the bilateral framework came in. So we were trying to capture the diversity of mentoring, the many forms that it can take, and also try to help us think through what are the implications of that. So the bilateral framework is that, just as Tim was saying, our notion that mentoring can be both a means to an end, it can be a tool or a context, as Tim has written about in other of his works, that promotes a particular outcome, or it can be an end in and of itself. And that end in of itself is really rooted in kind of the beginning notions of mentoring, that supportive relationships are good for young people, and that good things can happen in the context of those. And we're really trying to build off of that. And there's a lot of science that's come out in recent years that really supports that notion too, that kind of relationships are critical. We're hardwired to connect. In the absence of relationship, we suffer all kinds of mental health concerns, social isolation, loneliness. In the presence of them, lots of good things can happen. So that's a viable option too, is for mentoring to retain this idea of building relationships that are an end in of themselves, getting strong relationships, getting kids connected in strong relationships. And it's not the only one. So that's the other mistake that mentoring made, is somehow noting this is the only strong relationship that young people have. No, there might be a constellation of these relationships in a young person's life. But the goal is the relationship. If that's your goal, if that's the side of the bilateral framework that you're on, that leads to a different set of how do you think about outcomes. Outcomes become, is the relationship high quality? Is it functioning? Are the expectations of the relationship being met? Have you got the right mentors, people who are equipped and skilled, trained, and supported to be in a growth promoting relationship with a young person? If you're on the other side of the framework and you're thinking about this relationship as a means to an end, so you're going to highly structure that relationship in order to promote a particular outcome. In Tim's Lunch Buddy mentoring example, it's decreasing the social isolation of these kids who are being bullied and connecting them with their peer group. So it's a conduit. The mentor becomes a connector that connects that young person up to and strengthen their peer relationships. That leads to your outcomes are different in a program like that. What you need to do to train and support your mentors become different in a program like that. And as Tim has also argued elsewhere, your mentors can also be people that you train up and redeploy over and over again, because it might be a time limited program where a young person gets a mentor for a semester at school or for 6 weeks as they transition. That's another feature of the bilateral framework, is that the mentoring relationship is a means to an end, might be focused on a particular issue or problem or concern of the young person, or it might be focused on facilitating a young person through a transition, like maybe out of foster care, or any array. But there's a very focused intention, and you've got focused outcomes, and you've got focused skills you're looking for from your mentor. So we're trying to queue up ways of thinking about mentoring relationships that capture the array of them, but also get us thinking more deeply about what are outcomes. When we didn't do this, the relationship as an end in and of itself, we've saddled mentoring with all kinds of outcomes that are not attainable in the way that we think. Like we're going to somehow see kids jump in their academic performance, or they're going to magically, it's going to solve all kinds of, it's going to be a mitigator for all kinds of risk conditions that they're living under. And in reality, when we're fostering a growth promoting relationship with a young person, it depends on what that young person needs, what they might get out of that relationship. And different young people will take different things away depending on what their needs are. And so again, the mentoring program support has to really shift, because it's focused on helping the mentor build a strong relationship, and then also helping the mentor be able to identify when and where they might be able to leverage their resources to promote something that the young person could really benefit from. So that's in a nutshell the framework that we developed as a way to try to help move the field forward, to both welcome and honor the variety of forms that mentoring can take, and raise the bar for us all on kind of how to think about, be very intentional about mentoring.
Thanks, Renee. And we shared the link to the bilateral framework in the chat. I really do encourage you all to check it out and check out the article. It's a great historical account of the youth mentoring sector, and really a wonderful and well-informed agenda for the future of youth mentoring. And Renee, it's funny that you mentioned, in some of these relationships, we can prioritize the quality, and then it's more of a flexible approach on what outcomes the young person needs. So in my volunteer mentor relationship myself, we started with fun-based activities supporting self-esteem. Then he wanted to learn to swim, so we did that. Then he wanted to learn how to ice skate, so we did that. Then he wanted to do some college exploration, so we visited a college. He wanted to get his volunteer hours in, so we went to the local Boys and Girls Club. And now he wants to learn how to drive a car, so I got to trust him with my car. So that's kind of an example of that flexible approach to meeting the mentee's needs, right, while simultaneously honoring and kind of respecting high quality. So I'm going to, just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip a question for Gabriella. So you're off the hook, Gabriella. And this is for Kim. Kim, so now that you've gotten a chance to see some of the other components of the quality mentoring system, what value do you see in a national community of practice for mentoring professionals?
Yeah, well, I was super excited when we first started, when we were in the pilot phase and we were talking about the other components that could be part of the quality mentoring system, especially the community of practice. I think, as you heard from my colleagues, the assessment tool itself is fantastic and amazing. And then the quality, and then the community of practice just takes it one more step further. I think one of the things that I'm really excited about is just challenging our thinking and challenging our growth around mentoring. Just from hearing Tim and Renee speak, you've probably already started to think about your mentoring programs in a different way. And I think that the community practice will allow support for one another, but also an opportunity for us to really challenge the way that we're doing things. And then one of the priorities for us as an organization is just to, in our case, we're a youth mentoring organization, just ensure more youth in our community get mentors. And how do we do that? And so another thing I'm really excited about is just learning from others and building those relationships and partnerships to build capacity for us to just see that more kids get mentors. And how can we do that together? So yeah, really, really super excited about that growth up to the next step.
Thanks, Kim. And yeah, we're very excited about the National Community of Practice as well. As Jordy was mentioning earlier, we will be hosting community events where you can come to advance your knowledge and skills. So we'll be facilitating live discussions such as, a professional reading group where we can learn about the latest articles or books in the youth mentoring sector together. We'll have a visiting expert series where we'll have experts on certain topics come in and discuss their knowledge with us. So, as Kim was mentioning, maybe we invite someone who has a lot of depth of knowledge about how to recruit and retain mentors. We'll have an inside expert series. So if you're a member of the COP and you feel as though you have a lot of expertise and knowledge about a certain topic, you can let us know and you can host your own session. And then we'll also have your typical networking opportunities, coffee chats, things of that nature, and a bi-monthly newsletter, which are some tips from inside the community. So everything we learned from the community over those 2 months, and everything that I learned as I've been looking and digesting research and reading resources. So you get kind of exclusive access to some of that content as well. Okay, I'm going to skip a few questions just in the sake of time and get to the Q&A. So we have one final question for Kim, and I think it's an important one. So one of the motivations behind building the self-assessment was to help programs demonstrate the quality of their mentoring opportunities in order to help them seek and receive funding. So could you speak to your experience using self-assessment in that way?
Yeah, for sure. When we had the opportunity to be a part of the pilot, we were in the process of co-designing a new program with a community partner that we hadn't worked with before. So throughout that process, the self-assessment tool was just fantastic to guide us through that process. But one of the things I wasn't expecting was, as we started to map this out, it really was the framework for a funding proposal. And so we had the opportunity to apply for funding for this new program design with a funder. And what I found was it really had all the components of a proposal that you would need. We were able to turn the data over to, after we got done with the assessment, we did our printout, we had all of the information there. We were able to turn it over to our fund development team that were able to take it, and it was written in a way that was really digestible for us to be able to talk about in community and with funders. And I think the other thing is that all the information is there. So depending on your funder, you may want to, just have that high level conversation around who your target demographic is, that kind of thing. And then all to the full blown program design, what you plan to achieve, how you're going to do it, what are the outcomes. And so it can be used, I think, for a number of different funding opportunities, different funding types, but it really, like everything was there for us to be able to just create a framework from that and go and ask for funding. And we were successful in getting the funding. So that's always nice too. So yeah, it was an unexpected bonus that we didn't initially anticipate when we started that process.
Great. Thanks, Kim. And I'm just going to share my screen once again, just to show a brief snapshot of the report that is provided after doing the self-assessment. Is this showing, everyone? Yes, thumbs up. Okay. So the first report is the fundamentals of quality mentoring. So you get a check mark or a yellow question mark to maybe indicate that there's some more key practices that need to be in place or might be missing. So a good indication there. The next section is the principles of quality mentoring. So as Vero was mentioning earlier, all the principles are here. And then we have a continuum of not in practice yet, beginning, emerging, advanced, or comprehensive. And then the third section of the report is the further ethical considerations. So is your program user and youth-centered? Is there community engagement? And is there cultural responsiveness? Again, a continuum, and then with some ideas on how you might advance along the continuum. So I just wanted to share that very quickly to give a snapshot of the report that you'll receive after doing the self-assessment. And you can use that to, maybe write grants or have conversations with funders to kind of demonstrate your quality and your commitment to quality. Okay, I'm cognizant of the time. We have 5 minutes left. So do we have any questions in the Q&A that we'd like to prioritize?
Yeah, there's two that kind of go together, Ben.
Okay.
So Elaine just kind of asked, I just looked at the site and I'm very keen to try the self-assessment tool for my mentoring program. Can I ask, as a national body, how are you funded, and is the tool open source? And then secondly, the anonymous attendee also asked, is this tool free or is there a fee? So just kind of want to put those together. I can pass it to Vero to answer.
Ben can get started and I'll jump in if he's missing anything.
Sure. Yes, the tool is absolutely free to use. There's no cost associated with any piece of the quality mentoring system. We really are here to support the mentoring sector across Canada. So no fees whatsoever. The funding question is a bit above my pay grade. So maybe I will pass that along to
Yes, this was part of the funding that Mentor Canada received from the Government of Canada as we got started in 2019. So there are other sources of funding, but I would say that the main source of funding up till now has been the Employment and Social Development Canada. And the tool is not open source. So we have other tools that are open source, but this one is not. But it is free to access. You just need to create a user account so you can save your answers and all that. There's another question. Jordi, do you want to ask it or I can ask it?
I can ask it. So can you speak more to the population the tools are intended to serve? Example, youth only, as a little bit about other population identified in the background work that are also in need of mentoring in Canada?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, definitely not limited to youth. It's really up to 30 is what we focus on and what the quality mentoring system would be applicable for. So a wide range of ages, the quality mentoring system can definitely help you support. I wasn't particularly involved in the background, so I don't know if Vero, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so when we looked at designing a tool, we wanted something that was quite flexible. We have a definition of youth that is quite long, and really the tool with a little bit of agility could be used for other populations, including if you're doing a mentoring program for newcomers or anything like that, right? One of the principles is to, for example, to be context oriented and to pay attention to the needs, the goals, and the priorities of the people and communities served through your program. And that applies whether or not you're serving youth or if you're serving newcomers or other groups through your program. We had also a question about whether or not this was available outside of Canada, and yes, it is. I will point out, though, that, for example, there are other countries that have quality mentoring systems. So there's the National Quality Mentoring System in the US that you may want to check out as well. There are some programs in Spain. Not to say that you cannot use our tool, and it could be very much relevant for you as well if you're located elsewhere than in Canada. There's one more question in French, which I believe will mean that I will be answering it. Le mentorat peut-il être un outil ou système qui tend vers des objectifs non définis et continus dans le développement personnel et professionnel d'une personne? Donc, ici, on fait référence surtout à l'idée que René a décrite plus tôt, de l'idée que la relation en tant que telle devient l'objectif, puisque ça devient une relation qui est flexible et qui peut s'adapter aux besoins qui évoluent de la personne mentorée. Donc, on peut, entre autres, à travers cette relation, aider une personne mentorée à définir des objectifs et à les redéfinir sur la durée. Donc, oui, il y a plusieurs manières d'utiliser la relation de mentorat et ce qui a été décrit dans le chat ou dans la question, en fait, est bien aligné, en fait, avec le premier type de mentorat que René a mentionné plus tôt. All right, that's it for the French answer. Any other questions that we might have missed? I know we were keeping an eye on the Q&A, but maybe we missed something in the chat. So if there's anything else, please feel free to ask final questions. And we have a question or two for you as you leave and the webinar today about how useful you think this will be for you and what components you might be most interested in. So please, if you have a couple seconds, we would very much like to hear back from you to see, you know, if we're able to continue supporting you in that way. We have a lot of thanks, and we want to thank you all also for joining us today. I think that your enthusiasm was very much something that warmed our hearts. We've been working very hard on this for the last 2 years, and it's exciting to see that so many of you care about this, show up, and are looking to take this work on and move it forward now that it is available. Ben, I don't know if you want to close us off.
Yeah, I'm just going to put my email in the chat one more time. I know we're running out of time here, so if you have any further questions, please send me an email and I'd be glad to set up a meeting and talk everything and anything quality mentoring system with you. Thanks again for everyone who joined us. We're super excited about the quality mentoring system and we cannot wait for you all to get your hands on it. Thanks for all of our lovely panelists for helping us throughout this entire journey, conceptualizing, developing, refining, and coming here to speak about your experiences. We truly appreciate that. Yeah, with that, thanks everyone, and we look forward to hearing from you.